good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back at Hometown Commander, recording another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to outbrew the Magic world. And as always, the deck list is going to be down in this description below. We are soldiering on week 4 in our last week of Murders at Karlov Manor content. I've had a ton of fun brewing this set. I hope you guys have had fun with this set as well. And I want to just hit these last couple of commanders that I wanted to touch on before we finish our main coverage for the set. Of course, the commanders I haven't done always might get brewed later, but today we're talking about Massacre Girl, Known Killer. A very interesting card. Mono black commanders, I would say, are not particularly my skill set most of the time. But this one's definitely really interesting. Massacre Girl, Known Killer is a 4/4 human assassin with menace. It says creatures we control have wither. They deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. This is where a lot of our deck is going to be based around. And then, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. So there's a couple of ways we can achieve that, both with the wither, and of course black does have lots of ways to give creatures -X/-X or --, ways to do that and draw us cards. But I think there's really 2 ways that this deck is going to excel. We can either deal damage to creatures with wither and get counters on them and proliferate them. That's one kind of sub-way we can do it. The other is just using spells to target creatures, giving them -, killing them, drawing the cards, and just trying to get a board state where we can push our advantage. Mono black has some very scary ways to do that, both to an entire board and specific creatures. One of my favorite creatures we get to play in this deck is Massacre Worm. When it comes in, giving all of our opponent's creatures -2/-2. And then whenever a creature that player controls dies, they lose 2 life. So kind of tacks on that fun ability to our opponents. We can pair that with something like Drivnod to double up on that ability and get more of a benefit for it. But we have other things. The original Massacre Girl, when it comes in, giving everything -1/-1, and can be kind of a fun board wipe if you have the board set up the right way. Necroskitter has a wither, but it says whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you can return that card to the battlefield under your control, allowing us to potentially take back the thing that our opponents have that got counters put on them and use them to our advantage. Spitting Dilophosaurus from the Jurassic World's cards say creatures our opponents control with -1/-1 counters on them can't block, and every time in one of the ETBs or attacks, we put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. So now we're kind of spreading them around and take advantage of them that way. Midnight Banshee says at the beginning of our upkeep, we put a -1/-1 counter on each non-black creature, so all of our creatures are safe, and we're spreading them out. Corrosive Monter, again, just gives all of our creatures wither. That way, if Massacre Girl isn't down, we're still achieving the same result. But again, just a lot of scary black creatures. We're also packing things like Skithrix, to get some infect counters on our opponents to proliferate with a couple of our proliferate effects. Phyrexian Obliterator is just going to be a tough black creature to deal with. Shieldred for sacrifice. Yawgmoth can really dispense those -1/-1 counters by sacrificing creatures, so we're happy to play cards that get us tokens. Bloodletter can affect how much life our opponent loses. Sir Conrad there to play just a little bit of fun. Same thing with a Yara, just deal a little bit of damage every time something leaves a graveyard for Conrad, or a black creature comes under our control for Yara. Gisa is something that when our opponent's creatures die, we can get them back under our control and take advantage. So you can see with our creatures, there's a bunch of fun ways to do this. But with our spells, just wall-to-wall minus effects. Drowning Ichor, Golden Demise, Incremental Blight, Mutilate, Profane Command. These are just spells that are putting -1/-1 counters or giving -1/-1 to certain creatures. Black Sun's Twilight, Defile, Dismember. These are spells that are doing it on an individual basis. Tragic Slip. We have the mass board wipes like Toxic Deluge and Mutilate that can do it on a mass scale, or these 1-mana ones. One of my favorite cards in here is the Golden Demise. It says all creatures get -2/-2, but if we have the city's placing, only our opponent's creatures get -2/-2. So that can help be a little bit one-sided for us. And then, of course, we're in black, so we're playing things like Breach the Multiverse up on the top end to just have a ton of fun, take advantage. One of my favorite sneaky cards in the deck is Rise of the Dreadmar. A 3-mana instant says we make X/2/2 zombie berserker tokens where X is the number of creatures that die this turn. This could follow up one of those mutilates or toxic deluges and just get us a bunch of creatures back and sit on a really good part of the board. You know, we're playing things like Contagion Clasp to be able to reanimate, or sorry, to proliferate, as well as Tarion Soulcleaver and Blood of the Blood Chief to either make Massacre Girl really big or something else really big, and start threatening our opponents that way. But just like those things that are getting counters when creatures die, we're also playing things like Necrosynthesis and Eternal Thirst that make a creature bigger whenever another creature dies. So again, we can kind of hopefully use these effects or other effects to get our opponent's creatures lower and then hopefully kill them and then buff our creatures in the process. You know, we still have things like Massacre, Meathook Massacre to do that, and the instant side of, or the sorcery side of Virtue of Persistence to do that as well. But as far as enchantments go, there's a couple really cool ones that help us here. Blowfly Infestation, whenever creature is put into the graveyard from play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Start of our upkeep, destroy a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it. Nest of Scarabs, whenever we put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, we make that many 1/1 black insects. So again, just take advantage of these -1/-1 things that we can give to things and take real advantage of them. There's probably a lot more, to be honest, there's probably a lot of nuance to this deck that I'm missing. I just tried my best to kind of did what I thought made the most sense. A little bit of proliferate, counters on things, really get things to die and profit from things dying. I'm sure there's some combo I'm missing, but I think you get to see the point. Hurt our opponent's creatures with either the Wither by just blocking our creatures and them dying that way and still drawing us cards, or getting the -1/-1 counters out or spreading that plague around and kind of really having some fun. Well, let's get into the playtest. Keeping a 4-lander, which just looks really good. Yawgmoth there, the Aclazotz is there, and then Vine Ripper. A 6-mana 6/5 win the air that says whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life, so not a bad ability there. Turn 1, we just toss a swamp down. I mean, we don't have a ton to do here. Turn 2, another swamp. Again, you know, this is about what we expect to happen. Turn 3, but that Dark Ritual seems kind of fun. So we either have 5 mana or 3 mana. I mean, we could ideally get Massacre Girl down here, or we could get Necroskitter down. But I think even with 6 mana next turn, I don't see what my play would be. I hate to waste the mana, you know what I mean? I think this turn, Necroskitter makes sense to get something down. And then turn 4, we get a swamp. Now we're up to 6 mana if we use the Dark Ritual. We could Massacre Girl, Blood Chief, and attach it. That'd be something we could do, which I actually don't think I mind there. I get that down and get the Blood Chief, attach the Blood Chief to it, maybe take an attack with the Skitter. Again, it has a Wither, so opponents might have to consider whether they block it if they have little creatures. So that gets rid of that Dark Ritual for us. Turn 5, if our opponents have a bunch of little creatures, you know, Vine Ripper would be an option, but I think I kind of like Aclazotz here. Force our opponents to make some now really bad choices when they block, because when we attack with these creatures, you know, now we're dealing double the damage. And again, this Blood of the Blood Chief is just going to make our opponents blocking our creatures even worse if they die, putting counters on Massacre Girl that way. But again, take a big attack with Massacre Girl and Necroskitter here. Just try to either get in for damage or force maybe give our opponent the option of a bad block. Turn 6 here. Again, I wish I had some way to make a token, but we just got Blood Artist, which isn't a bad ability, but I think probably Vine Ripper here, and again, take the same attack now. Bloodletter's in the air, Massacre Girl, and Necroskitter. Just try to force our opponents into bad blocks or bad blocks for them. And if we do, we get some triggers, drawing, and things like that. If we don't, we're just putting pressure on our opponents. We see a Mutilate, which would be -6/-6, which would wipe my entire board. So I got to be a little bit careful there. I think here we could just Yawgmoth. And again, right now we could pitch a card to proliferate if we wanted to, but Massacre Girl being the thing attached with the Blood Shape. So the thing with a counter. So my other wonders here is, do we Blood Artist? I would want to know what's on the board. If there's a lot of little 1/1s and 2/2s, I think I might just Massacre Girl here because it would be a one-sided board wipe that's going to end up being really good for us. But if there's a lot of big creatures, I think I just like Yawgmoth, Blood Artist, and take another big attack. You know what I mean? It just kind of depends on the board state. And I think that's how the rest of the game would go, figuring out where our window is to use. Massacre Girl having another Tarian's Soul Cleaver now, put it on, maybe Akhlazot's or Vein Ripper, have two of these creatures that are just getting bigger. I think that's kind of where we go in the mid to late game. But let me know, what do you think of Massacre Girl down in the comment section below? What did I miss? What did I do wrong? I always love when you guys point out cards that I didn't see, because it helps you learn, it helps you understand how to be a better brewer, and that's what keeps me going. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.